Tyler had always believed the world wasn't built for boys like him. Everywhere he turned, there were walls of silence, of judgment, of fear. But it wasn't until the night he met Gabriel that he realized those walls could crumble with just one look. He didn't mean to notice him. The first time was by accident, at a local open mic night, tucked inside a tiny cafe that smelled like burnt espresso and dreams. Tyler was there because his sister had dragged him out of his apartment, saying he needed to see the world for once. He hadn't planned to stay. He hadn't planned to feel anything. But then, on that dimly lit stage, a boy with dark hair and a quiet guitar began to sing, and Tyler forgot how to breathe. Gabriel's voice wasn't perfect, cracked in the middle of a verse, trembled near the end, but it carried something that Tyler hadn't felt in a long time, truth. It was as if every note was a confession, whispered into the dark for whoever dared to listen. And Tyler listened. He couldn't help it. When the song ended, the cafe erupted into soft applause. Gabriel gave a shy smile, his gaze scanning the crowd. For one impossible second, their eyes met. Tyler looked away first. The next week, he found himself back at the cafe. He told himself it was coincidence. He told himself he was just there for the coffee. But as Gabriel stepped onto the stage again, strumming the first chords of a new song, Tyler knew he was lying to himself. There was something magnetic about him, not in the way movies describe attraction, but in the way stars pull at tides. Gabriel didn't demand attention. He earned it quietly. He was light disguised as a boy. After the performance, Tyler gathered the courage to approach him. His palms were sweating. His throat felt tight. "Hey," he said awkwardly, his voice catching. "You're really good." Gabriel smiled, soft and genuine. "Thanks. I'm Gabriel. Tyler." And that was it, the moment something in Tyler's chest shifted, like the world had suddenly tilted in a direction that made sense. They started talking after every show, sometimes about music, sometimes about nothing. Tyler learned that Gabriel worked part-time at a bookstore down the street and studied art at a local college. He learned that he painted sunsets because, as Gabriel once said with a laugh, "They remind me that endings can be beautiful, too." Tyler didn't tell him much about himself, not at first. He wasn't used to being seen. Growing up, he'd learned to hide his softness, to bury the things that made him different. His father's words still echoed in his head. "Don't be weak, son. Don't be like that." So Tyler became what the world wanted him to be: quiet, polite, invisible. But around Gabriel, he didn't have to hide. One evening, after the cafe had closed, they walked down to the lake. The moon rippled across the surface of the water, and the air was cool enough to make their breath visible. Gabriel skipped a stone across the lake, then turned to Tyler with that same easy smile. "You're quiet tonight," Gabriel said. Tyler hesitated. "I'm just thinking." "About what?" He looked out at the water. "About how some people make the world feel less scary." Gabriel tilted his head, his eyes catching the faint glow of the streetlight. "And do I make the world less scary for you?" Tyler met his gaze. "Yeah, you do." For a moment, neither of them said anything. The night was still, the only sound the gentle lapping of water against the shore. And in that quiet, something passed between them. Something fragile, unspoken, but real. Weeks turned into months. They spent lazy afternoons in bookstores, late nights in coffee shops, quiet mornings at the lake. Gabriel drew Tyler once. Said he wanted to capture the way you look when you forget to be afraid. Tyler blushed for days after that. But happiness, Tyler learned, wasn't always easy to hold. One evening, as they walked through town, a group of boys from Tyler's old high school passed by. He recognized one of them, Ryan, the kind of guy who never grew out of cruelty. "Hey, isn't that Tyler?" Ryan called out, smirking. "Didn't know you switched teams, man." The laughter that followed cut deeper than Tyler expected. He froze, his throat closing up, shame burning hot under his skin. He wanted to disappear, to melt into the pavement. Gabriel's hand brushed his light, careful grounding, but Tyler pulled away. "Tyler," Gabriel said quietly. "I can't," Tyler muttered, his voice trembling. "Not here." He walked off before Gabriel could stop him. For days, Tyler avoided him. He ignored Gabriel's messages, his calls. He told himself it was better this way, that Gabriel deserved someone braver, someone who didn't crumble under a few cruel words. But loneliness had a way of finding cracks in even the strongest walls. By the fourth day, Tyler found himself standing outside the bookstore where Gabriel worked. The sky was gray, threatening rain. He didn't know what he'd say, only that he couldn't stand the silence anymore. When Gabriel saw him, he didn't look angry, just hurt. "You disappeared," Gabriel said softly. "I know. Why?" Tyler swallowed hard. "Because I'm scared. Because every time I think I can be myself, someone reminds me that I shouldn't be." Gabriel stepped closer, his voice steady. "You don't owe the world an explanation for who you are, Tyler." Tyler looked up, his eyes wet. "But what if the world hates me for it?" "Then let it," Gabriel said simply. "Because I won't." Tyler broke then, not out of weakness but release. Gabriel reached out, his hand finding Tyler's. Their fingers interlocked, and for the first time, Tyler didn't pull away. Outside, the rain began to fall. But inside that small bookstore, it felt like the world had finally gone quiet. From then on, they faced things together. The whispers, the looks, the uncertainty of what came next. Some days were easier than others. Some nights, Tyler still woke up afraid. But each morning, when he saw Gabriel's smile, the same one that first disarmed him at that tiny cafe, he remembered why it was worth it. Love, he realized, wasn't about erasing fear. It was about finding someone who held your hand through it. And Gabriel did, every single time. The lake became their place. Whenever the noise of the world got too loud, they'd go there, sit by the water, and just exist. No labels, no fear. Just two boys who had found something rare in each other. One evening, as the sun sank low, painting the sky in gold and rose, Tyler turned to Gabriel. "Do you ever wish things were easier?" he asked. Gabriel smiled softly. "Sometimes. But then I think if things were easy, maybe I wouldn't have met you." Tyler laughed, shaking his head. "That's cheesy." "Yeah," Gabriel said, leaning closer. "But it's true." And when their lips met, gentle, hesitant, then certain, it wasn't fireworks or movie magic. It was peace. The kind of peace Tyler had been searching for his whole life. He used to fear the world. Now, when he looked at Gabriel, all he saw was home. The following weeks unfolded like a slow sunrise, soft, hesitant, yet full of quiet promise. Tyler began to laugh more easily, to walk with less tension in his shoulders. It wasn't that the world had changed. It was that he finally had someone who made it feel survivable. Gabriel had that way about him. He could find beauty in broken things, light in places most people stopped looking. He painted constantly, on scraps of paper, on napkins, on the back of receipts. Sometimes he painted Tyler. Never perfectly, never in grand strokes, but in little pieces. A tilt of his smile, the curve of his wrist, the way sunlight caught in his hair. "You make me sound better than I am," Tyler teased one night, watching him sketch by the window. Gabriel didn't look up. "No," he murmured, shading in the corner of Tyler's jawline. "I just draw what's real." Tyler smiled softly. "Then you must see something I don't." Gabriel put down the pencil, looked up and said, "I do. I see you when you think no one's watching. You're brave, Tyler. Braver than you know." Tyler didn't answer. He couldn't, not with the lump forming in his throat. Instead, he leaned forward, pressing his forehead against Gabriel's. And for a long, quiet moment, they just breathed together. But love wasn't a straight road. It never was. One afternoon, Tyler's father called. It had been months since they'd spoken. The voice on the other end was sharp, tired, and heavy with unspoken things. "I heard about you," his father said. "About that boy." Tyler froze, his pulse quickening. "What about him?" "Don't play dumb," his father snapped. "People talk, Tyler. I didn't raise you to embarrass this family." There it was, the knife disguised as concern. Tyler's mouth went dry. "He's not. It's not what you think." But the lie tasted like ash. His father sighed, a sound filled with disappointment. "You need to stop seeing him. Whatever this phase is, it ends now. You understand me?" Tyler closed his eyes. "Yeah," he whispered. "I understand." When the call ended, the silence in the room was suffocating. He stared at his phone for a long time before tossing it aside. He wanted to scream, to break something, to tear down every wall that had been built around him. But all he could do was sit there, shaking, his heart splintering under the weight of old fears. That night, he didn't go to the cafe. Gabriel texted him. "You okay?" Tyler didn't reply. The next day, another message. "You don't have to talk. Just tell me you're all right." Still nothing. He told himself he was protecting Gabriel, that by pulling away, he was saving him from the mess that came with loving someone like him. But deep down, he knew the truth. He was scared again. Days passed, then a week. The ache in his chest grew heavier by the hour. Until one evening, as he walked home from work, he saw Gabriel standing across the street. No words, no smile, just standing there waiting. Tyler froze. The city noise faded, replaced by the rapid beat of his heart. Gabriel crossed the street, stopping just a few feet away. His eyes were tired, but still warm, still him. "You disappeared again," Gabriel said quietly. "I know. Why this time?" Tyler's voice broke. "Because my father found out. He said I should stop seeing you." Gabriel studied him for a long moment. "And what do you say?" Tyler swallowed hard. "I don't know." Gabriel stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "If you're scared, I get it. But don't lie to me, Tyler. Don't pretend I don't matter." Something inside Tyler cracked open. The tears came before he could stop them. "You do matter. You're the only thing that feels real to me." Gabriel exhaled, relief and pain mingling in his eyes. "Then don't run from it, please." Tyler hesitated only a second before reaching for him. Because for once, he didn't want to live in fear. Their hands found each other, and everything else. His father's voice, the noise of the city, the stares from strangers, faded into nothing. They didn't talk much after that. They didn't need to. They just walked, fingers intertwined, as if daring the world to look. At the lake that night, the air was cool and still. Gabriel threw a pebble into the water, watching the ripples spread. "Do you ever think about leaving this town?" he asked. "All the time," Tyler admitted. "Where would you go?" "Somewhere quiet. Somewhere we don't have to explain ourselves." Gabriel smiled faintly. "Maybe one day we will." Tyler turned to him, his chest tightening. "You think that's possible? For people like us?" Gabriel met his gaze. "It has to be." Tyler wanted to believe him, and in that moment, beneath the pale light of the moon, he almost did. A few weeks later, Gabriel got accepted into an art residency in Seattle. It was everything he dreamed of, a chance to paint, to grow, to finally be seen. But it meant leaving. Tyler tried to be happy for him. He smiled, said all the right words, even helped him pack. But every time Gabriel looked away, Tyler's heart twisted a little tighter. The night before Gabriel's flight, they met at the lake. It was late. The world around them was asleep. The air smelled like rain and goodbyes. "I wish you'd come with me," Gabriel said softly. Tyler looked down. "You know I can't." "You can, Tyler. You just won't." He didn't answer. He couldn't. Gabriel stepped closer, his voice trembling now. You don't have to be afraid forever. I'm not ready, Tyler whispered. Gabriel nodded, the sadness in his eyes unbearable. Then I'll wait, for as long as it takes. Tyler felt the tears spill before he could stop them. You'll forget me. Gabriel smiled weakly. Impossible. They kissed, slow and aching, like two souls memorizing each other for the last time. And when they finally pulled apart, the first light of dawn was breaking across the water. Gabriel left that morning. And for the first time in years, Tyler stood by the lake alone. He didn't cry. He didn't run. He just breathed deep and steady because somehow Gabriel had taught him how. He feared the world still, but somewhere inside that fear, hope had begun to grow. Weeks turned into months after Gabriel left. The city felt emptier, quieter. The little cafe where they'd first met had lost its magic. The music no longer reached him the same way. The lake, once their secret refuge, now looked like a photograph of a memory. Still beautiful, but hollow. Tyler threw himself into work, into routines, into anything that could dull the ache. But grief, he learned, doesn't vanish when you ignore it. It lingers. It hums beneath every silence. Every song on the radio sounded like him. Every sunset reminded Tyler of the way Gabriel used to squint into the light, smiling as though he could tame the whole sky. Sometimes he'd open his phone and scroll through old messages. Hey, meet me at the lake tonight. You're quiet, what's going on in that head of yours? Tyler, you're allowed to be happy. He never replied, though his fingers hovered over the screen for hours. He missed the small things, the way Gabriel tapped his foot when he was thinking, the scent of paint on his hands, the way he laughed without restraint. The world hadn't stopped being cruel or confusing, but Gabriel had made it feel softer. Now everything just felt sharp again. One night, after too many hours staring at his ceiling, Tyler found himself walking. No destination, just movement. The streets were slick from rain, the lamps casting long reflections on the pavement. His breath came out in clouds. The city was asleep, but his thoughts weren't. He ended up at the bookstore, the one where Gabriel used to work. It was closed, dark behind the glass, but the old display was still there. A few faded art prints, a pile of second-hand poetry books, and a photo tacked in the corner. Gabriel had taken it months ago. The lake at dusk, their silhouettes barely visible in the distance. Tyler stood there for a long time, his hand pressed to the cold window. He whispered, I'm still scared, Gabe, but I'm trying. The words disappeared into the night, but somehow, saying them out loud made it feel like a promise. Over the next few weeks, Tyler began to change. It wasn't sudden or dramatic. It was quiet, like the slow thaw of winter. He started talking to people again. He signed up for an evening class in photography, something he'd always wanted to do but never had the courage for. The first day, he nearly walked out, heart pounding, palms sweating. But he stayed. His professor was kind, his classmates warm. They talked about light, about framing, about finding beauty in imperfection. Tyler didn't tell anyone about Gabriel, but somehow every picture he took was about him. The way sunlight touched water. The way faces softened when they thought no one was watching. One evening after class, the professor stopped beside him. You've got an eye for emotion, she said, glancing at his work. Your photos feel like longing. Tyler smiled faintly. Yeah, that sounds about right. He walked home that night feeling something he hadn't felt in months. Pride. By spring, the world had shifted again. The air was warmer. The city felt alive. And one morning, as he was sipping coffee by the window, an email arrived. Subject, Gallery Showcase, Seattle. Tyler blinked, reading it twice. It was from the art studio Gabriel had joined months ago. The message was simple. We're hosting an open exhibition this weekend. Gabriel's new collection debuts here. You're welcome to come. For a full minute, Tyler couldn't move. His heart thundered in his chest. He read the email again and again. Seattle. A city he'd never been to. A boy he'd never stopped loving. He thought of deleting it, pretending he'd never seen it, pretending he was content with his quiet, half-healed life. But deep down, he knew that wasn't true. Fear had dictated too much of his life already. That night, Tyler booked a ticket. The train ride was long, the scenery shifting from countryside to coastline, from empty fields to glittering skylines. Tyler sat by the window, headphones in, his fingers tracing the condensation on the glass. Every mile that passed felt like shedding an old layer of himself. When he arrived in Seattle, the air smelled like rain and salt. He followed the directions to the gallery, a small, white-bricked building tucked between a bakery and a record shop. His chest tightened as he stepped inside. The room was bright, filled with soft music and murmured conversations. Paintings lined the walls, abstract pieces, portraits, landscapes. And then, near the far corner, Tyler saw it. Painting of the lake. Not just any lake, The brushstrokes were wild yet tender. The water shimmered with colors of dusk. And in the center, two figures stood side by side, gazing at the horizon. One of them was unmistakably him. Tyler's throat closed. He stepped closer, his hand trembling slightly. The small label beneath the painting read, "Still water for tea." By Gabriel Hayes. He didn't realize Gabriel was standing behind him until he heard his voice. "I didn't think you'd come." Tyler turned. And there he was. Gabriel looked a little different, older, maybe. His hair was longer, his eyes still soft but steadier somehow. He wore paint-splattered jeans and a half-smile that made Tyler's knees weak. "I almost didn't," Tyler said quietly. "But you did." "I did." For a long moment, they just stared at each other, the noise of the gallery fading into nothing. "You've been okay?" Gabriel asked. Tyler nodded slowly, trying to be. "You?" Gabriel chuckled softly. "Surviving. Missing home." "Home?" Tyler asked. Gabriel's gaze didn't waver. "You know what I mean." Tyler's chest tightened. "You waited." Gabriel shrugged lightly. "I said I would." Silence fell again, but it wasn't the same kind of silence they'd shared months ago. This one was full of all the things they hadn't said, all the time they'd lost, and all the hope still left between them. They left the gallery together. Outside, the city buzzed with life, but the world around them felt still. They walked side by side, neither speaking. Tyler's hands were cold, and Gabriel noticed. He reached out wordlessly and took one in his. Just like that, the months apart melted away. "I thought you were gone for good," Tyler murmured. "I thought so too," Gabriel said. "But then I realized some people are worth finding your way back to." Tyler's eyes stung. "You're still cheesy." Gabriel grinned. "And you still love it." Tyler laughed, the sound breaking through his tears. They ended up by the water, the bay this time, not their old lake, but it didn't matter. The waves whispered the same language. Gabriel leaned against the railing, the wind tugging at his hair. "I kept painting you," Gabriel said softly. "Not your face, just the feeling of you." Tyler smiled. "Then I guess I never really left." Gabriel turned to him, his voice low. "You didn't." And when Gabriel leaned in, Tyler didn't hesitate. The kiss was soft, certain, the kind of kiss that didn't demand attention. It simply existed. A quiet victory against everything that once told them they couldn't. When they pulled apart, Gabriel rested his forehead against Tyler's. "You're not afraid anymore, are you?" Tyler shook his head. "No, not when I'm with you." Later, as they stood watching the water shimmer under the moonlight, Tyler realized something. Fear would always exist, so would judgment, so would uncertainty. But love, real love, wasn't about erasing those things. It was about choosing to live in spite of them. And as Gabriel's hand tightened around his, Tyler finally understood what peace felt like. It wasn't the absence of fear. It was the presence of love. They spent that night walking along the pier, the city lights glimmering like scattered stars on the water. Seattle felt alive around them. Music spilling from open bars, the hum of distant traffic, laughter from strangers who would never know what this moment meant. Tyler couldn't stop glancing at Gabriel. Every small thing about him felt both familiar and new. The way he ran his hand through his hair when thinking, the way his lips curved into a half-smile before he spoke. He had missed these details more than he'd ever admitted, even to himself. "I still can't believe you're here," Gabriel said quietly. Tyler laughed under his breath. "Neither can I. I almost turned around at the train station." Gabriel looked at him with gentle amusement. "Why didn't you?" Tyler hesitated. "Because I remembered what you told me once, that the world isn't supposed to understand us before we understand ourselves. I figured maybe I finally do." Gabriel stopped walking. For a second, his face softened with something deep, almost tearful. "You really mean that?" Tyler nodded, voice trembling. "For the first time, yeah. I was so scared of what people would think that I forgot to ask what I wanted. But I want this. I want you." Gabriel didn't say anything. He just reached forward and pulled Tyler into his arms. The wind carried the faint scent of salt and rain, the sound of waves rising and falling against the dock. Tyler pressed his face into Gabriel's shoulder, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he felt safe. They spent the weekend together. It wasn't grand or dramatic. It was ordinary in the most beautiful way. They drank coffee in small cafes, wandered through art exhibits, sat on park benches feeding birds. They didn't need to talk about the past or the pain that had shaped them. Just being together again was enough. On the last night, they stood by the window in Gabriel's apartment, the city skyline glittering below. Gabriel poured 2 cups of tea, handed one to Tyler, and smiled. "You're staying tomorrow, right?" Tyler looked down into his cup, uncertain. "I don't know. I hadn't planned anything beyond this weekend." Gabriel leaned against the counter, studying him. "You always plan too much. Maybe just stay. See where it goes." Tyler met his gaze, searching it for doubt, but found only patience, the kind that had always defined Gabriel. "I'm scared it won't work," Tyler admitted. Gabriel stepped closer, brushing a thumb against Tyler's cheek. "Maybe it won't. Maybe it will. But that's life, isn't it? You can't love halfway just because you're afraid of the ending." Tyler breathed out a trembling laugh. "When did you get so wise?" "Somewhere between painting and missing you." Tyler smiled. "That's unfair. You're good at both." Gabriel chuckled, shaking his head. "Then stay, Tyler. Let's stop being stories that end in fear." Tyler looked out the window again. The glowing city, the endless sky, and realized that for once, his heart wasn't running away from itself. "Okay," he said finally, his voice steady. "I'll stay." Months passed, and the seasons turned again. They built a small life together, nothing extravagant, but full of quiet joy. Tyler found work at a local gallery, photographing exhibits and sometimes even helping Gabriel document his art. Their apartment was messy, full of canvases and Polaroids and unwashed mugs, but it was theirs. There were still bad days. Some nights, Tyler would wake up from dreams of his father's voice, from echoes of the past. But Gabriel would always be there, hand reaching across the sheets, grounding him back to the present. And on the good days, the ones full of sunlight and laughter, Tyler would catch himself watching Gabriel, realizing that this was what healing really looked like. Not a sudden transformation, but the slow rebuilding of hope, moment by moment, breath by breath. One afternoon, Gabriel surprised him with a trip back to their hometown. Tyler was nervous. His chest tightened the moment they drove past the old streets, the familiar trees, the cafe that started it all. But something inside him had shifted. The fear that used to anchor him to the past was gone, replaced by a quiet strength he didn't know he possessed. They stopped by the lake at sunset, the same one where they'd first admitted what they felt, where Gabriel had once told him, You don't owe the world an explanation for who you are. The water shimmered under the fading light. Tyler stood there for a long time, breathing it in. It's smaller than I remember, he said softly. Gabriel smiled. Maybe you just grew bigger. Tyler turned to him. You think so? I know so. They sat on the old wooden dock, their legs dangling over the edge, the world around them painted gold and pink. Tyler watched the ripples on the water and felt something settle inside him. A sense of peace so complete it almost scared him. He turned to Gabriel, his voice barely above a whisper. You know, I used to think love was supposed to save me, but I was wrong. It didn't save me. It just gave me something worth fighting for. Gabriel reached over, lacing their fingers together. That's all it ever needs to do. The wind picked up, carrying the faint scent of pine and rain. Tyler leaned his head on Gabriel's shoulder, eyes fixed on the horizon. I'm not afraid anymore, he said quietly. I know, Gabriel whispered back. Years later, Tyler would look back on that moment, their silhouettes framed against the dying light, and realize it was the start of everything that mattered. The world hadn't stopped being cruel, but it had also become vast and full of color, full of people who dared to love even when it hurt. He and Gabriel built a life that was imperfect but real. They fought sometimes, laughed more often, painted walls, adopted a stray cat that refused to like anyone but Tyler. They made new friends who didn't care about who they loved, only that they were kind. And every evening, when the sun dipped below the skyline, Tyler would look at Gabriel and see the same boy from that tiny cafe. The one who sang off-key, who painted sunsets, who saw something beautiful in him when he couldn't. One night, years later, Gabriel set up a new canvas by the window. I've been meaning to paint this for a while, he said. What is it? Tyler asked, setting down his camera. Gabriel smiled softly. The first time I saw you smile. Tyler laughed. That was years ago. You still remember. Every detail, Gabriel said, his voice tender. Because it was the moment I stopped feeling alone. Tyler walked over, pressed a kiss to his cheek. You're impossible. And you love me for it. Always. That night, as the rain tapped gently against the glass, Tyler realized that the boy who once feared the world had finally learned to live in it. He still had scars, still carried shadows, but they no longer defined him. They were just proof that he had survived, and found something beautiful on the other side. He turned to Gabriel, who was smiling at his unfinished painting. The room was warm, filled with the hum of quiet contentment. Tyler whispered, almost to himself, You know what's funny? I used to think peace was something you found somewhere out there. But it's not. It's right here. Gabriel looked up. Where? Tyler smiled. In you. Gabriel's eyes softened, and he reached out, pulling Tyler close. Then I guess we both found it. Outside, the world carried on, loud, chaotic, uncertain. But inside that small apartment, two boys who had once been afraid simply held each other, unafraid at last. And as the night stretched long and gentle, Tyler thought of how far they'd come. From fear to freedom, from silence to song, from loneliness to love. He closed his eyes, a smile tugging at his lips, and whispered the truth he had spent his whole life learning. The world will always be loud, but love will always be louder.